Welcome to another edition of Winging It with Sandy, and I'd like to introduce my co-host, Sandy West. Hi, Sandy, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Very well, very well. So, we had a phenomenal reaction to fear of flying, which is understandable because about 40% of people have got a serious fear of flying, so totally understandable. So, Sandy, perhaps you can run us through some of the questions and see if we can give them some answers.
Yes, definitely. Thank you. And wow, the responses to the last episode really were incredible. It was honestly just really good to hear from other people that totally get it. All the nervous flyers, the reluctant travelers, and the people that are trying to act chill while they're low P gripping those armrests as well. Some of the tips were genuinely really helpful, and I'm going to give most of them a go as well because I'll try anything once. One that was interesting and made a weird kind of sense to me was from, I'm sorry, I'm probably going to pronounce most of these names wrong. MC Yomo 6297. They suggested to lift both feet off the floor during turbulence. Apparently, that can kind of disconnect your nerves or disconnect you from the aircraft. So I'm not sure if that one is physics or witchcraft, but I'm going to take it and I'm going to try it.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. When I saw that question, I thought, yeah, all right. I don't know. I think it sits between physics and witchcraft, and but I mean, the other thing is, whatever does it for you, that's great. You know, for somebody else, they may say no, it doesn't work for me. But yeah, that's an interesting dynamic. I've thought about that a bit actually, and I'm not sure exactly what the technical answer might be, but that's interesting. Interesting.
Well, if anything, it's got to be good for the stomach muscles, right?
Yeah, exactly. You can do some yeah, get the six pack going. Yeah.
So, again, sorry if I'm saying the name wrong, but Assad Cameron, 2154, said that takeoff is the worst part for him. And 100% yes, same for me. I can totally be fine when I'm boarding. And I think that maybe this is the flight that I'm actually going to be fine and I've cracked it. And then the engines roar and we bolt down the runway and my brain just nopes out. I think it's got something to do with maybe the lack of control, like you know that it's normal, but your body still seems to feel like it's a lot. It's loud, it's fast, and there's no easing into it. You go from zero to sky in about 20 seconds.
Mm. Well, in fact, landing is safer than, sorry, takeoff is safer than landing, I can promise you. The majority of accidents actually occur on landing. So I think you should possibly relax a bit more with the takeoff. Yeah, certainly the acceleration. Wow, we're tearing down a runway. But you're in very, very good hands. And a couple of things to consider when you're taking off. There are several uh, points, if you like, in the cockpit where you have a takeoff speed, then you have a commit speed where you can't stop. So if something goes wrong, you have got to take off. Now, passengers should be aware that if it's a two-engine aircraft, don't worry, they are certified to take off on one engine. So if there's an engine failure, they'll still take off, no problems at all. Go up, circle around, come back after dumping fuel typically because they don't want to land overweight, and they'll come back in and land. So, you know, takeoff is far, far safer than landing.
Interesting. The Gillian Russell said that she's actually never flown before. Like me, loves aircraft and has even flown in a helicopter, but has not done a commercial flight. I completely understand that mix of passion and fear. So that's very real. And I have completely been in the same place where I love the idea of planes. I just don't want to be inside one.
Well, Gillian, planes are a lot safer than choppers, let me tell you. It's You're far safer in a commercial aircraft. I think one of the things that exacerbates the fear of flying is that everybody who's on an aeroplane today has a mobile phone. and they film everything that happens and they put it on social media and it goes viral. And planes fascinate people because most don't really understand how aircraft fly. It's a mysterious sort of industry. Um, so those sort of videos get tremendous amount of coverage on social media, and people get concerned about flying. They think, "Well, cripes, look at this! Look what's happened." But that has to be kept in perspective because there are approximately 130,000 flights a day. That's just commercial aircraft. Forget about general aviation or executive jets or that sort of thing. Talking just commercial aviation. And every year, 4 billion people fly. That's more than half the population of the Earth fly every year. So it's a massive industry. And really, the number of incidents today is just almost insignificant in the context of how big it is. So that you got to get that in perspective.
That is one of the things I spoke about in the last episode, trying to reassure
Yeah.
myself those stats is definitely one of those things I go through repeatedly. Another good one was from Chris Carley 4335. He reminded us that sometimes sitting near the wings for turbulence can be more stable. And I'm sure that Jeff, you've probably got the stats on whether this one's based on fact.
Yeah. So sitting in the front is stable. What you find is sitting in the very rear of an aeroplane, you can get some movement, what we call fishtailing. It's no big deal, but it does occur, so it can get a little bit more movement at the back. Why I like sitting over the wing when I'm traveling, typically I travel in economy, um, and I buy an exit row. And I buy an exit row because I'm 6'4" or 194 centimeters, whatever it is. And so I need that extra space. But also, I buy an exit row because I want to be next to the exit because I know how to use them, I know how to operate them. And what worries me about flying today is if there is an emergency, people insist on taking their bags with them. And this slows up the exit process significantly, and has actually cost lives. So I want to be able to get out of that aircraft as quickly as possible, but then to assist other people to get out and to help and stop people bringing their bags and be a useful sort of participant in an emergency because I understand the dynamics of it and I understand what needs to be done. But I think if you have a fear of flying, sitting over the wing next to an exit could calm you down. And also, if you buy an exit row, which doesn't cost you that much extra money, you also get more space and you get less claustrophobia. So there's some thoughts on that.
True. So Angela McCaw, 8656, shared how she and her son used to visit the cockpit mid-flight back in the day. Can you even imagine that now? These days, if you even look at that cockpit door sideways, you're going to get tackled by an air marshal. But she is right. Seeing the pilots and how calm they would be would definitely be a big reassurance.
Oh, yeah, look, there's no doubt about that. I remember those days with fondness, where the cockpit door would be actually left open for most of the flight. It was just company policy, and you could actually peer over and have a look what was going on, and you did feel reassured, no doubt about it. And also visiting the cockpit, you enter this really calm, serene space. You see what's going on, and you do feel absolutely reassured. And back in the day, back in the 90s, before 9/11, I would always travel in the cockpit. Pilots would know that I was on board and they would summon me. I might be sitting in business class or first class, and all of a sudden I get tapped on the shoulder by a flight attendant. Oh, the captain wants to see you. And I'm thinking, I don't really want to see the captain. I want to have this lovely meal and watch a movie. But no, you're going to sit in the cockpit. And they want to chat to you about, the industry, which is great. It was actually fantastic. But on a number of occasions, we were going through. This was with Cathay Pacific, We were going over Borneo, which is like thunderstorm alley, a lot of thunderstorms. And to watch them navigating around these thunderstorms, the amount of work they were doing, you were so impressed and so reassured that everything was under control. And I remember going through a little bit of turbulence, and I thought to myself, if I was back in the cabin, I'd really start to be feeling a little bit uneasy. But sitting up here seeing what's going on, I'm completely reassured. So it does have a very calming impact. I couldn't agree more.
Well, so there are another couple of amazing coping tricks that I heard as well. So Angela Wagbo, she holds hands with strangers. Respect to that. I probably would do the same too, except my fear tends to give me sweaty palms, so I probably wouldn't force that upon anyone else, I don't think. Again, sorry for the pronunciation. Diduba 286 says they are totally fine flying, but still hate it. Same. And the signal electrician used to be a commercial pilot. He said passengers would be so much calmer if they heard more from the cockpit. And I could not agree more with that one because silence is absolutely not calming. It's suspicious. I once had an aborted landing. Recently, actually, we had the full go around, engines up, climb out, the works. And I 100% know that the cockpit is probably extremely busy when that is going on with the air traffic control and everything and kind of coming around and trying to organize to land again. But even after we landed, there was still no explanation. Just a quick, hey, this is why we had to do it. And I'm sure it was probably something as simple as another aircraft probably just hadn't left the runway yet. It was probably something so minor, but just to know would have been a little reassuring. And so I still don't know why it happened. It's going to always be a mystery.
Yes, look, that is there were some airlines, and they may still do it in the United States. I think United was definitely one of them, where you can actually listen to the cockpit conversation. They between the cockpit and air traffic control, I should say, not the cockpit conversation between the co-pilot and the pilot, but between the non-flying pilot who's talking to air traffic control and air traffic control. You could listen to that, and it was reassuring. You could hear all the chatter that was going on about turbulence up ahead. Look, can we decrease altitude? Can we increase altitude to get away from it? Yes, you can. And the various conversations that were going on, it was very reassuring, and it was great. I really enjoyed listening to it. When it comes to communication with the cabin from the cockpit, in a go-around situation, usually they're working pretty hard because while they have it all worked out as to what they're going to do if they have to abort the landing, and there's a set route they've got to take, they do have a fair bit of work to do to communicate with air traffic control, get vectored to a new approach. Maybe it's a different runway. There's all sorts of dynamics going on, and they're working pretty hard. So quite often you won't hear from the cockpit for that very reason and nothing else. But as you say, Sandy, after landing, yeah, I say, hey, sorry, folks, to scare you. We had to do an aborted landing because an aircraft was on the runway, and et cetera, et cetera. So that would be very reassuring. I remember once I was in the United States taking off from Minneapolis, St. Paul, and we were in Northwest Orient DC-10. We turned onto the runway and away we went. We got about halfway down the runway and slammed on the brakes. And that was because another aeroplane had not exited the runway fast enough. And we heard this tremendous roar above us. And there was a United Airlines 727 peeling away because it had to abort its landing because we had to abort our takeoff. So, in America, it can get pretty tight. And if something goes a bit awry, then all sorts of things start to happen. So you can understand why the cockpit crew probably aren't, giving you the time of day. So just kind of bear all that in mind.
Yeah, so I did kind of realize that, and that if they're not talking to us, it's probably because they're extremely busy flying the plane. But yeah, just after landing, just a simple Sorry about that. This is why. It's just going to just, yeah, as I said, just be a forever unsolved mystery from my brain. One of the funny ones that I heard, and I think this one's going to be a good one for you to answer, GT. Apparently, the modern planes are just reliant on too much technology, and that makes them less safe. I thought it was a bit of a spicy take, but I'm going to let you fact check this one.
Yes, no, the opposite is the case, I can promise you. The number of crashes per departure, which is measured in millions. So, back in the 1960s, when the jet era started, it was about 15, 16 crashes per million departures. Now it's less than zero. It's a fraction of zero. And recently, just to give you the numbers, Boeing, and we're going to put a link to this statistical summary. And it's really very reassuring. So there'll be a link in the information below, details below. But when you look at aircraft like the Super Jumbo, the A380, no accidents whatsoever. You look at an aeroplane like the 787, just carried its one billionth passenger, 1 billion passengers, and no accidents. Been flying since 2011, no accidents. The new Airbus A220, no accidents. You got an aircraft like the 717, no accidents. Regional jets, CRJ 700, 900, 1000, no accidents. Now, these aircraft, most of these aircraft, are what we call third and fourth generation glass cockpits. So, in other words, instead of the old analog dials, you've got beautiful computer screens, which you're seeing on your screen right now. Now, where the problem exists in recent times is not the aeroplane, but it's the pilot training. And what we're finding is that some pilots have not been trained properly. And when something does go wrong, they haven't got the skill set to handle it. And that's been the case in a number of accidents. So, as far as the aeroplane is concerned, absolutely the latest generation, they simply don't have accidents. That's all there is to it. Like the A380, 787, the new Airbus A350, no accidents. The new A330neo, no accidents. It goes on and on and on. So, it's not the aeroplanes, it is, in fact, the pilot training that is deficient. And that's been the case in some recent accidents where something goes wrong, which normally you could easily fix and handle. Unfortunately, they didn't because they lacked the proper training. And this is something the industry is grappling with at the moment. So the message there is pick a safe airline, a good airline with a great reputation, and you'll be absolutely safe.
And read those statistics as you're
Yeah.
going through turbulence.
While it's a Boeing report, it covers all aircraft manufacturers, Airbus, Bombardier, Embraer. It does not cover Russian built aeroplanes. So all Western built commercial aircraft are covered in this report. And one of the interesting things about this, and people are not going to believe this, but I don't think it's actually listed here anymore. The aircraft with the worst safety record in the world was the Concorde. Fact. Absolute fact. The number of flights it did, for the accidents that it had and the incidents, it was by far and away the least safe aircraft in the world. That's an amazing stat. So there you go.
Well, I've actually just really loved hearing all of these stories. If anyone else has even more tips and hacks, I would absolutely love to hear them all. Any weird rituals, anything that'll help, keep it coming. I've added several of these to my list that I'm going to try, and if they work, I'm going to continue doing them. Also, if there's anything else that people want, us to talk about on here, whether it's fear related or otherwise, I'm sure that we would welcome any ideas to chat about.
Look, absolutely. We're kind of focused on passengers, whether they're unruly, nasty people you don't want to sit next to, whether it's your fear of flying, whether it's questions about boarding procedures or how things work, and particularly passenger related. That's what we're trying to kind of focus on. So, Sandy, you'll be back on Monday. We haven't actually decided what we're going to talk about yet, but we'll have a chat about that afterwards, and we'll pick out one of the many great subjects that you've underlined that you want to discuss. And so, viewers, thank you for watching. Please subscribe to us. Please like us. Please send us your questions, and please do tune in um, on Monday for Winging It with Sandy or one of our other channels, and you can see that on our YouTube channel, all the selection we've got. So thank you, Sandy, for all your work, and we'll see you viewers very soon.
Thanks again for having me. Chat again soon.
Pleasure.